How to make delicious candy apple chips.
Let's see what's cooking. Let's get the facts. Let's see what's cooking. It's time for yoyomax12.
Hello everyone, I found this recipe on a blog called Oh Bite It, and I will put a link in the description box if you want to check out the original recipe. To make this, you will need 2 medium-sized apples, or in this case I used 3 small apples. You need to slice them very thinly. Now what I did for some of the apples, I quartered them and then sliced them thin, and some of them I just sliced thinly but tried to get large pieces of apple. As I was slicing the apples, I was putting the cut pieces into a bowl of water just so that they would keep from browning while I was finishing the task. The apples I'm using are Gala apples, but you can use any variety of apple that you like, of course. And I left the skin on as well. In a medium saucepan over medium-high heat, add 1 cup of water and 1 cup of white granulated sugar. Now the original recipe asked for 3 drops of cinnamon extract as a flavoring. I've never heard of cinnamon extract before, and I certainly don't have any in the house. So what I decided to do was to add just plain cinnamon. So I added a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon to the mixture, and I added some food coloring. I added probably about 10 drops or so of red food coloring, and then I began to stir this continuously over medium-high heat until it began to boil, and then I very gently dropped in the apples into the boiling syrup. Bring this mixture back up to a boil and continue to boil it over medium-high heat for about 15 minutes until the apples are cooked and they become translucent. You can give it a stir every once in a while, just be careful not to break the apples while you're doing so. So there it is, about 15 minutes later, the apples have become translucent. That means they're almost see-through. Then you're going to remove them and put them on a wire rack over top of a cookie sheet and slip a piece of parchment paper underneath the rack, or in this case I'm using a silicone mat to catch the drips, and bake it at 350 degrees for 15 minutes. Now don't throw out the rest of that yummy syrup. What I did with mine is I continued to cook it for about 5 minutes over high heat until it reduced in volume by half. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to show you what to do with that later. Now there are the apples. They've been baking in the oven for 15 minutes. And while they're still hot, remove them from the rack and place them on some parchment paper to cool completely. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the results and what I thought of this recipe. So I'm going to give you a little close-up here of a couple of different pieces. The small pieces, like these little quartered apples that were sliced thinly, these were great. They ended up nice and crispy. So they were almost like potato chips in that sense, but candy apples sweet, and they were delicious. The larger pieces that I might have sliced a bit thicker, they were also delicious, but they were more leathery and more sticky, and as you can see, they're not crispy at all. Equally delicious, but not crispy. So slice them thin and keep the pieces small. Now what to do with that leftover syrup? You could serve it over vanilla ice cream, and you can call this candy apple ice cream, and add a few of those apple chips as a garnish. Now wouldn't this make a fantastic dessert for Thanksgiving? Okay, now a word of warning for those of you that would like to try these. The small pieces are better, like I just mentioned. Those are nice and crispy. However, I left a few of those pieces on a plate on the countertop overnight, and the next day all of the pieces were soggy and sticky. They were no longer crispy. So I think the moisture from the apples comes out and softens up the sugar overnight. So these will be good, served the same day. Enjoy them as soon as they cool down after they come out of the oven. Throw them on your ice cream or serve them up as a little quick sweet treat, but don't expect them to stay nice overnight. Could I have fixed this problem? I don't know. Maybe by keeping them in the refrigerator might have helped a little bit. Or maybe baking them longer in the oven or boiling them longer. I'm not sure. All I can tell you is that in my experience, a lot of homemade sugar products have a tendency not to be so great the next day. Thanks for watching. One of my most favorite things to do in the kitchen is to make homemade candy. So what I've done is I've taken all of my candy making videos and I've organized them into a playlist. So if you'd like to check it out, go ahead and click right on your screen or see the link in the description box. Bye-bye.